Imagine waking up to find 7 black SUVs blocking your driveway, men in dark suits standing at your door, your phone ringing off the hook, all because you fired someone for showing basic human decency. This is the story of Marcus Thompson, a mechanic whose only crime was having a heart. When he stayed late to fix an elderly woman's wheelchair for free, his boss didn't see compassion. He saw disobedience. What happened next? Marcus lost his job on the spot. But what his boss didn't know was that this old lady wasn't just anyone, and the consequences of his cruelty were about to arrive at his doorstep in the most unexpected way imaginable. The question isn't whether justice was served. It's how far someone will go to crush a good man, and what happens when the universe decides to push back.
Marcus Thompson was the kind of man who didn't need much to be happy. At 32 years old, he'd been working at Brennan's auto repair for nearly 8 years. It wasn't glamorous work. Oil-stained uniforms, long hours, hands perpetually smelling of grease and gasoline. But Marcus took pride in what he did. Every engine he brought back to life, every brake pad he replaced, every tire he balanced, it all meant something to him. He'd grown up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and promises were broken as often as they were made. His father had worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on, and his mother had cleaned houses until her knees gave out. Marcus learned early that if you wanted respect, you earned it through hard work and integrity. So that's what he did. Brennan's auto repair sat on the edge of town, a squat building with faded paint and a flickering neon sign that buzzed in the evening air. The owner, Dale Brennan, was a man in his mid-50s with a beer gut, thinning in air, and a temperament that swung like a pendulum between indifference and outright hostility. He wasn't the kind of boss who remembered birthdays or asked about your family. To Dale, employees were numbers on a balance sheet, expenses to be minimized, tools to be used. Marcus had learned to navigate Dale's moods the way a sailor reads changing winds. Keep your head down, do your job, don't ask for much. It wasn't ideal, but it paid the bills. And in a town where good jobs were disappearing faster than rain in a drought, Marcus knew better than to rock the boat. But there was something about Marcus that Dale couldn't quite crush, no matter how hard he tried. It was a quiet stubbornness, a refusal to let the world make him cruel. Marcus still held doors open for strangers, still helped elderly customers carry their groceries to their cars, still believed that doing the right thing mattered, even when no one was watching. It was a Tuesday evening when Mrs. Eleanor Fartley rolled into the shop. The sun was already dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Most of the other mechanics had clocked out. Marcus was finishing up a transmission job, wiping his hands on a rag, when he heard the soft whir of an electric wheelchair. He looked up to see an elderly black woman maneuvering through the garage entrance. She was small and frail, her white hair pulled back in a neat bun, her dark eyes sharp despite the lines of age carved into her face. The wheelchair she sat in was old, decades old from the looks of it. One of the wheels wobbled badly, and the motor emitted a strained whine that made Marcus wince. "Excuse me, young man," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm so sorry to bother you this late. I know you're probably closing up soon." Marcus smiled, setting down his tools. "No bother at all, ma'am. What can I do for you?" Mrs. Hartley gestured toward her wheelchair. "This old thing's been giving me trouble. The wheel's about to fall off, and I'm afraid if I try to make it home, I won't make it. I called a few repair places, but they all said they don't work on wheelchairs. I thought maybe, well, a mechanic is a mechanic, right?" Marcus crouched down beside the wheelchair, examining the wheel. The axle was bent, the bearings were shot, and the motor mount was loose. It was a mess, but it was fixable. "I can take a look," Marcus said. "Shouldn't take too long."
Mrs. Hartley's eyes filled with relief. "Oh, thank you so much. I can pay you." "Don't worry about that right now, ma'am. Let me just get you fixed up." What Marcus didn't see was Dale Brennan standing in the doorway of his office, arms crossed, watching the exchange with narrowed eyes.
Marcus worked quickly, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. He pulled spare parts from the shop's inventory, a replacement bearing here, a bolt there, a bit of welding to straighten the bent axle. It wasn't complicated work, but it required care and attention. Mrs. Hartley watched him quietly, occasionally asking questions about what he was doing. "You're very good at this," she said at one point. Marcus shrugged, not looking up from his work. "Just doing what needs to be done." "That's rarer than you think," Mrs. Hartley replied, her voice carrying a weight that made Marcus pause. "Most people only do what benefits them." Marcus didn't respond, but he felt the truth of her words settle in his chest. He'd seen it himself, the way people turned their backs on each other, the way cruelty became casual, normalized. He didn't want to be that kind of person. He refused to be. It took him about 45 minutes to finish the repairs. When he was done, he tested the wheelchair, rolling it back and forth to make sure everything was stable. The wheel no longer wobbled. The motor purred smoothly. "There you go, Mrs. Hartley," Marcus said, stepping back with a smile. "Good as new." Mrs. Hartley's eyes glistened. "Young man, you have no idea what this means to me. How much do I owe you?" Marcus waved her off. "Nothing. Don't worry about it." "Nothing?" Mrs. Hartley looked stunned. "But the parts, your time." "It's fine," Marcus insisted. "Really. I'm just glad I could help." Before Mrs. Hartley could protest further, a voice cut through the garage like a whip crack. "Thompson!" Marcus turned to see Dale Brennan storming toward him, his face flushed red with anger. His boots echoed on the concrete floor, each step heavy with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Dale barked. Marcus straightened, keeping his voice calm. "Just helping this lady with her wheelchair, sir." "Helping?" Dale's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You're using my parts, my tools, on my time to fix a damn wheelchair? Are you out of your mind?" Mrs. Hartley's eyes widened in alarm. "Sir, please, I can pay." "I'm not talking to you," Dale snapped, barely glancing at her. His eyes were locked on Marcus. "I'm talking to this idiot who thinks he can run a charity on my dime." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "It was just a few spare parts, Dale. Small stuff. I figured—" "You figured wrong," Dale interrupted, stepping closer. "You don't get to figure anything. You don't get to decide what we do with our inventory. You work for me. You follow my rules. And if I say we don't fix wheelchairs, we don't fix wheelchairs." The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly. Marcus could feel the heat rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. "She needed help, Dale. It was the right thing to do." Dale laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "The right thing? You think this is about right and wrong? This is a business, Thompson. And you just cost me money. Again." "Again?" Marcus repeated, confused. "Yeah, again," Dale said, his voice rising. "I've been watching you, always staying late, always doing favors, always playing the hero. You think I don't notice? You think I don't see you giving people discounts, throwing in free oil changes, wasting time on sob stories?" Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but Dale wasn't finished. "You're not here to be a saint, Thompson. You're here to make me money, and if you can't do that, then you're useless to me." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He could feel Mrs. Hartley's eyes on him, wide with shock and sympathy. He could feel the weight of every choice he'd ever made, every time he'd chosen kindness over convenience, decency over profit. "So that's it," Marcus said quietly. "You're upset because I helped someone? I'm upset because you're a liability, Dale shot back. "And I don't keep liabilities on my payroll." The silence that followed was suffocating. "You're firing me?" Marcus's voice was steady, but his heart was pounding. "Damn right I am," Dale said, crossing his arms. "Clean out your locker. You're done. Effective immediately." Mrs. Hartley gasped. "Sir, please, this is my fault. Don't punish him for—" "Lady, I don't care," Dale interrupted coldly. "He made his choice, now he gets to live with it." Marcus stood there for a long moment, staring at the man he'd worked for 8 years, the man who'd never once said thank you, never once acknowledged his effort, never once seen him as anything more than a tool to be discarded when no longer convenient. And in that moment, Marcus realized something. He'd been waiting for this. Somewhere, deep down, he'd known this was coming. Because men like Dale Brennan, they didn't value loyalty. They didn't value integrity. They valued control. And Marcus had just reminded Dale that he couldn't be controlled. "All right," Marcus said finally. "I'll get my things." He walked past Dale without another word, his shoulders squared, his head high. Behind him he heard Mrs. Hartley's voice, trembling with emotion. "Young man, wait, please, I'm so sorry." But Marcus kept walking. Not because he didn't care, but because if he stopped, if he turned around, he might say something he'd regret, and he wasn't going to give Dale Brennan that satisfaction. As Marcus cleaned out his locker, stuffing his spare uniform, his work gloves, a framed photo of his family into a duffel bag, he felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, yes. Frustration, absolutely. But also something else. Something that felt almost like relief. Because for the first time in 8 years, he didn't have to pretend anymore. He didn't have to swallow his pride, bite his tongue, accept disrespect as the cost of survival. He was free, even if freedom felt an awful lot like falling.
Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. How was he going to pay rent? How would he explain this to his mother? How long would it take to find another job in a town where word traveled fast and grudges lasted longer? But beneath the worry was something sharper, something that burned hot and relentless. Injustice. He'd done the right thing. He'd helped someone who needed help, and he'd been punished for it. Not just punished, humiliated, cast aside like garbage. And why? Because Dale Brennan couldn't stomach the idea that an employee might have a conscience. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to calm the storm inside him, but sleep wouldn't come. His phone sat silent on the nightstand. No calls from Dale, no apology, no second chance. Not that Marcus expected one. When the first light of dawn crept through his window, Marcus dragged himself out of bed. He made coffee, stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, and tried to figure out his next move. And then he heard it. The sound of engines. Multiple engines. Deep, rumbling, powerful. Marcus frowned, walking to his front window. He pulled back the curtain and froze. 7 black SUVs were parked in the street outside his apartment building. They were pristine, gleaming in the morning light, their windows tinted so dark they looked like polished obsidian. And standing beside them were men in dark suits, their expressions unreadable, their postures military straight. Marcus's heart began to pound. What the hell was this? Before he could process what he was seeing, there was a knock at his door. 3 sharp raps, deliberate and firm. Marcus approached the door slowly, his hand trembling as he reached for the knob. He opened it to find a tall man in a perfectly tailored suit standing in the hallway. The man's face was calm, professional, but his eyes held a gravity that made Marcus's breath catch. "Marcus Thompson?" the man asked. "Yeah?" Marcus said warily. "Who's asking?" The man reached into his jacket. Marcus tensed, and pulled out a leather ID holder. He flipped it open, revealing a federal badge. "Special Agent Carmichael, U.S. Secret Service. We need to talk." Marcus blinked. "Secret Service? What? Why?" "It's about Mrs. Eleanor Hartley, the woman you helped last night." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," Carmichael assured him. "But she's also someone we take very seriously. You see, Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Hartley isn't just any elderly woman. She's the mother of Senator Jonathan Hartley, and before that, she was a federal judge for 30 years. She's a highly protected individual." Marcus's mind went blank. Senator Hartley, federal judge, protected individual. I didn't know," Marcus stammered. "She didn't want you to," Carmichael said. "That's how she operates. She likes to see how people treat her when they don't know who she is. It's a measure of character." Marcus swallowed hard. "So, what does this have to do with me?" Agent Carmichael's expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Hartley told us what happened last night, how you helped her, how your boss fired you for it. She was very upset." "She shouldn't be," Marcus said quickly. "It's not her fault." "That's what she figured you'd say, which is exactly why she made some calls." "Calls?" Marcus nodded toward the SUVs outside. "Mrs. Hartley reached out to her son, and her son reached out to some friends. People who don't take kindly to good people being punished for doing good things." Marcus felt lightheaded. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Carmichael said slowly, "that Brennan's Auto Repair is about to have a very bad day."
By noon, Dale Brennan's world was unraveling. It started with a surprise inspection from the Department of Labor, violations for unpaid overtime, unsafe working conditions, and wage theft. Then came the IRS, flagging years of suspicious tax filings. Then the EPA, citing improper disposal of hazardous materials. Each agency arrived with badges, clipboards, and grim expressions. Dale's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Lawyers, accountants, suppliers cutting ties, customers canceling appointments. And through it all, Dale couldn't shake the image of those 7 black SUVs parked outside Marcus Thompson's apartment building. He'd heard about them from a neighbor, heard about the federal agents, heard about Mrs. Hartley. When the full story reached him that the old lady Marcus had helped was the mother of one of the most powerful senators in the country, Dale felt his knees go weak. He'd fired a good man for helping someone who could destroy him with a single phone call. And she had. By the end of the week, Brennan's Auto Repair was shut down pending multiple investigations. Dale Brennan was facing fines, lawsuits, and potential criminal charges. And Marcus? Marcus got a call from Senator Hartley's office, a job offer, head mechanic at a veterans rehabilitation center, a place that fixed wheelchairs, mobility devices, and vehicles for disabled veterans. The pay was double what Dale had been paying him, full benefits, respect. But more than that, Marcus got something else, something he hadn't realized he lost. He got his faith back, faith that doing the right thing still mattered, that kindness wasn't weakness, that justice, however slow, however imperfect, could still find its way to the surface. Mrs. Hartley visited him at his new job a month later. She rolled up in that same wheelchair, the one Marcus had fixed, and smiled at him with the kind of warmth that made his chest ache. "You saved me that night. Not just my wheelchair, but my belief that there are still good people in this world." Marcus shook his head. "I just did what anyone should have done." "No," Mrs. Hartley said firmly, "you did what most people won't, and that makes all the difference." Racism doesn't always wear a hood. Sometimes it wears a tie. Sometimes it hides behind words like policy and business. Sometimes it punishes decency and rewards cruelty. But here's what Marcus's story teaches us. When you stand for what is right, when you refuse to let the world make you small, when you choose compassion over convenience, the universe has a way of noticing. So ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have helped Mrs. Hartley? Would you have stood up to Dale? Would you have kept your integrity even when it cost you everything? Share this story. Let people know that kindness still matters, that courage still counts, and that sometimes, just sometimes, justice shows up in 7 black SUVs. Drop a comment below. Tell us about a time you did the right thing even when it was hard. And if this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe, because stories like Marcus's need to be told. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and never stop fighting for what is right.